Good evening. It is Tuesday, February 10th. I am calling our town council meeting to order. If you will please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. All right, we'll start our evening with our town manager's comments.
Thank you, Mayor Clement. Looking at your agenda this evening, and specifically the consent agenda, it opens with a couple of budget amendments, and to just boil down both A and B into probably the most straightforward terms. In an effort to fund three items, we have done some things with revenue, and I'll just run through those items. So the items that we are funding here, the first is the semi-annual town hall payment. Obviously, when we adopted the budget back in June, we were not aware we were going to be moving forward on a town hall project. We did take out an installment loan for that, and we do have one payment due in this fiscal year in the amount of $327,250. So we wanted to create some money in the budget for that. You all heard Assistant Manager Roth's report out at the work session regarding the ongoing Whitehall project and the efforts to get the carriage house completely CO'd. So there's going to be $105,000 transferred into that capital project fund. And then thirdly, you'll recall for some time we have been working toward some upgrades and fixes at the Reservoir Park Dam. You'll recall the big outstanding issue there is being able to control the water levels in advance of large rainfalls and things. Very important item to be able to do, obviously. We have, over time, done some engineering toward that. We have been putting in for the proper permits through the state. And where we stand with that now, we've also been attempting to apply for various grant monies and able to complete that project. We've not been successful with those grant applications, and we've pretty regularly now been informed that the state and those various granting organizations are looking at our project as more of a maintenance type of issue rather than the types of things that they are currently funding. So what we wanted to do now that we have a permit in hand from the state and a bid packet ready to go was go ahead and be able to move forward with that project if at all possible, because it is a sizable project and it's one that is only going to become increasingly expensive, as we've seen with all construction projects. So we were trying to free up an additional $800,000 to be able to move forward with bidding that project and getting it under construction in the near future. So Town Hall, Whitehall, and the Reservoir project, the way we have come about balancing that out is recognizing a little over $280,000 in sales tax revenues from the first quarter of this fiscal year, so receipts from July, August, and September. $250,000 in additional investment earnings when we set or predicted or estimated the revenues in the fiscal year back in June. I think there was a lot of thoughts in the market about interest rates and such, and we fully anticipated those would have gone down where maybe they haven't. So the good news with that is we've been able to generate some additional investment earnings that we had not originally appropriated. We are transferring $376,000 from the available fund balance. You'll recall that we entered the fiscal year at budget time with a little over $600,000 in available fund balance, so it would be utilizing a portion of that. And then finally, you'll recall that we budgeted $300,000 originally towards some design of the fleet maintenance facility. Staff has been back to you since that time to talk about looking at a design build type of process for that. As a result, we would not be spending the $300,000 in this particular fiscal year. That is a project we want to revisit with the fiscal year 27 budget that you'll all be discussing soon enough. So while that $300,000 is on hand and not being spent in this fiscal year, we'd like to put it toward that reservoir project to go ahead and get that funded and kicked off. So those are the revenues that we are asking council to appropriate toward the three projects, the Town Hall, the White Hall, and the Reservoir project that I just described. And that is all done through the two amendments before you in items 5A and 5B. Finally, item 5C is a resolution requested by the NCDOT and also the Village of Whispering Pines for council's approval or recommendation that the speed limit on Airport Road north of the Airport Road traffic circle up to the village limits of Whispering Pines would be dropped from 55 to 45. And the reason for NCDO's interest in our council's input on that is because, of course, the Carapines subdivision on the right-hand side, if you're driving into Whispering Pines, all lies within the Southern Pines corporate limits. So beyond that, you'll have your meeting minutes. Planning Director Grieve will revisit the Phase 3 implementation projects from the comprehensive plan that you discussed at your last work session, and then you've got a series of public hearings for the evening. With that, I'll gladly take any questions on the consent agenda or otherwise ask for an adoption of the agenda as presented.
I do have one quick question. Using that big a chunk of available fund balance, I know we are nearing the end of the fiscal year, but how much do we have left in case something were to come?
So from your appropriated or from your budgeted amount, you're still going to be a little over 300,000. But remember, when we set that fund balance, that is pre-audit. So you're actually going to be very good with that because we generally carry over that amount then when we come back and start talking about budgeting in April. So you're not bankrupting yourself in any way, shape, or form or dropping below your 25% for that matter.
Are there other questions on the consent agenda?
Yes. Question in regard to the speed limit out on Airport Road. As I understand it, we're going from the traffic circle headed toward Whispering Pines and dropping the limit there. Coming back the other direction in front of Forest Creek and Sand Hills Community College and O'Neill School. Tell me about the status there.
So council had passed a resolution regarding that last, I want to say October.
Right.
DOT is in receipt of that. I've not heard that they're going to make any movement on it one direction or the other. Again, that resolution only covered from Midland Road up to the traffic circle. So this is a separate section that's being looked at.
And that one's already 45.
When he is already 45, correct.
But it was to be dropped to 30.
And it's 45 and it drops to 35 actually as you approach the traffic circle, get in
Right.
generally
Right.
the vicinity of Sand Hills Community College and the O'Neill School.
And just to refresh my memory, we suggested dropping that to 35.
The 35, correct.
Right, okay. And I was confused by something you said, not because you were confusing, but because I don't know the process. But you said DOT requested?
Instance,
How this
because they
happens.
already had something from the Village of Whispering Pines, and they're
Okay.
taking a very serious look at actually dropping it to 45.
Okay,
Because we have jurisdiction along one side of that, they requested our input on it.
okay, great, thank you. I thought, how unusual, but
It
not.
is. Usually we ask them.
It all makes sense, okay, thank you.
Are there other questions on the consent agenda or minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to our public comments. Do we have anyone in the public who would like to speak? Ms. Brower? Good evening.
I was there when she started that business, so get our state.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Brower, thank you for the two comments that we need to look into in addition to the information in our state.
I'd love to break protocol for just a second and ask a follow-up question. What is your suggestion for the speed limit through the West Southern Pines district on Pennsylvania Avenue?
25.
25, and are you asking that start at the bridge over US 1, or?
Bridge all the way out to Midland. It's really, it's disrespectful the way people speed through here, and if you say 35, they'll do 50 maybe.
Right.
Or 45, but it's very, it's just no regard, because the folks usually don't work or live in this community, they're going to and from.
Okay.
And like I said, if you sit and putting the speed monitor doesn't help, because naturally people slow down when they see it.
And my other question, and the mayor may hit this soon, I'm not sure, the Martin Luther King service has been now postponed 3 times, and I think it's this Sunday at 3 o'clock.
It is 3:30. And two, I was on the comprehensive plan when I first moved back here, and the consultants from Washington State recommended speed calming devices or whatever for this street, but we haven't done anything.
Thank you.
While I appreciate the additional information, breaking protocol is probably not the right way to address that. Next time we'll reach out to you after the meeting and follow up. Yeah, thank you though. All right, is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Okay. I feel like trying to set ourselves up for success moving forward when we do have busy meetings. When we respond to one, I feel like we're setting a trap for ourselves. Yeah, not responding to all of them. But, all right, thank you. All right, so moving on to our action items. The first item we have is the Comprehensive Plan Phase 3 Implementation Projects. So we
Consent
have-
agenda.
Oh, sorry, you're right. We talked about it, not approved it.
I'll make a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? All those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Director Grieve, you're up. Comprehensive Plan, Phase 3. What?
Good evening, members of council. BJ Grieve with the Town of Southern Pines Planning Department. I come before you this evening with a draft list of Phase 3 implementation projects. You will recall at the January 20th work session, I did review these projects and spoke about the previous 2 phases and the status of completion of each of those projects. The Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 were in the packet. And so the only thing I did add was at the conclusion of the January 20th work session, Councilman Curtin had some comments about the historic district, the National Register Historic District and the local historic district. We took an opportunity to sit down with Councilman Curtin, myself, and a member of our team, Mason Maddox, who is in charge of the historic district for our team. And we had a great conversation. And so I put on here as item number 7, that's the only thing that was added since the January 20th work session, was a placeholder about protecting historic resources, Goal 10, and evaluating the National Register and local historic districts. And the reason was because the nature of his comments were getting at that issue. I won't try to put words in his mouth, so I'll just hand it over to Councilman Curtin if he has anything to say about that. Otherwise, that's what we've got on the list, and I won't go over those 7 things again in the interest of brevity.
First of all, I'd like to say a couple things. Number one, I do appreciate the mayor and the fellow councilman members, allowing me the opportunity the other day to kind of bring that up. I'm well aware that every time a request for information goes back to, the manager and his staff, that it's just not I'm going to run back to my computer and find it. There's a lot of work, a lot of research, and it was evident in our meeting on Friday. So I do appreciate all the work that our staff does, and I will be very judicious in my request for information and digging at things in the future, because the testament to what you guys do really is true. You guys work your derrieres
We work
off.
hard.
You work
Yeah.
hard. Thank you, sir. But I just wanted, for the record, I put some notes together, and after our last conversation, I was like, man, I don't know if I really hit it, but obviously preservation and property rights must exist in a very careful balance. It's a very delicate balance, and I am well aware of that. And we have a responsibility to protect the character and historic integrity of Southern Pines, but we got to do it in a way that's transparent, fair, and respectful to the individual property owners as well. And I saw that you all balancing that, you and Mason and James, and I appreciated that. So good policy, I would say, is not overreach, right? And so we got to balance that, and that's your job, and I appreciated that. That's precisely why I don't know how to formally go about this, but I think updating our historic district survey is really, really important, and I'm just going to provide a couple of reasons why. Much of the foundational data guiding our preservation decisions is now outdated. We've kind of determined as we pull back, not grossly outdated. It's nothing that we can't just adjust and move forward. But without an accurate current survey, we risk making decisions based on incomplete information. I believe this, here's the key to me though, and I think I'm really behind this 100%, but I believe this survey update should be funded predominantly through state and federal preservation grants, minimizing the burden to our local taxpayers. So I don't want to send a request for information up and then ask everyone in the town to go ahead and pay, that. I think there's avenues where we can go ahead and look for grants, both state and federal. They're out there. We've used them in our past, and I think we need to do that. Additionally, I think we need to bring together the community members who are much behind this preservation move, and I think they need to be integrated, and we haven't fleshed out to what extent with our staff, because the staff's going to add the level of professionalism and be able to touch the focus points so that we're not negating our equilibrium when it comes to property owner rights and preservation of our historic districts, if you will, or our historic sites as well. And who do I mean by that? I'm talking, number one, we've got to include property owners, historians, nerdy guys like me, preservation advocates, and clearly the staff, because you guys bring together what strength we need. So I think a grant-funded, data-driven survey update is both fiscally responsible, number one, and essential to safeguarding the historic fabric that defines Southern Pines for the future. We have a 2040 comprehensive plan that, is our playbook. If I remember the introduction, we need to look at this as our playbook. And we don't want that playbook to get stale, or we might look like our New York Jets. And more specifically, and I kind of hit this, one of the things that really has me scared, we've done a lot of updates to our UDOs. You guys have done a lot of great work, and I've got to get smart. But this SB 382, it affects everything we do, whether it is in our face or whether it's in hidden streams. That does not eliminate Historic Preservation Authority, but it significantly narrows the regulatory tools available to us as a town. Specifically, we would be considered relatively, small to medium-sized town. It makes preservation more dependent on collaboration and incentives and less on zoning-based protections. And so that's why I think, number one, if we don't have the will of the people behind it, and right now all I'm doing is getting beat up by emails and phone calls, now I want to turn it back and say, hey, I'm here. I will be your advocate, but I think we need to put these focus groups together and have people come to us to show that they really are invested in it. And then they also know, ma'am and gentlemen, that our business model is, yes, the historic preservation, the beautiful Southern Pines way, but it's also respecting individual landowners and their rights. And so that balance, I throw back out there. When I looked at this and I talked to the planning, the staff, this is not something I think that happens overnight. I think it's a 3 to 4 year plan. If we do this deliberately, we safeguard all the things, because we can't just stop doing business, and we can't just say, okay, hey, we're not gonna, dig any more ditches. So I think we need to, next look at, if we're looking forward, let's getting these focus groups together, see what the real impetus, see what the real energy behind it is, and then get that group to start looking out and getting those grants from the state and federal government. And then I think we move forward. But short of that, I don't have anything to bring to you to say, let's go ahead and do this, although I'd love to. I really would, but I want it balanced, ma'am. But thank you so much again for their amazing day, 3 hours. You can't get those 3 hours back, and I don't want to, because there are some really good moments in there.
Do you feel like that under our Phase 3 implementation projects, item 7 is at least starting the process that you're looking for?
Oh, am I still?
For-
Yeah, absolutely. I really do. I feel really good when I left there. I'm certainly not an expert, as some would say.
That's why we have staff.
But
You guys are
those are the
different,
expert
yeah.
guys right down there. Yeah, I think we're in the right path. I think some of the other things that I think he's going to, BJ and Mr. Grieve and the team are going to talk about, really, they do a really good job, and they're really smart about being precise in what needs to take place.
Okay.
And how it unfolds is, we don't have a say in that. It's a collect, that's the hive mind, if you will.
Yeah, well, I think that's, our job is to make sure that we point you guys in the right direction and get everyone involved. So I think this is a really good start.
Here's what I take from that. What I take is meant presently at the beginning of Phase 3 by your comments and by number 7 is private groups can look for grants to update the National Register, and we would provide staff assistance to them to help them with just information about what that is, how the process works, et cetera. And then if they do find a grant and they get into it, the council has, there's support for staff to, I don't want to say do it, but work with them to provide them information, et cetera. That's not a heavy lift for us. We're used to doing that. And then possibly a work with the Historic District Commission or some type of a focus group, just if needed, on how that process would work. But if the money isn't available in a grant, I'm not hearing that the town would pay to update the National Register survey.
I would agree wholeheartedly. I mean, short of some unforeseen incident that would drive us in a different direction, I think the fact that we have our eye on the prize is step number 1, and everything you just hit is the next step. So
And then for timeline, I'm just looking at that thinking, say 9 months along, we come with a little pie thing and it says it's 50% complete, and here's why. Because we've talked to some local groups that are actively looking for grants, and 2 have been identified, whatever, just a status report.
I think that sounds great. Do you
I
have
have a question, yeah, for the Phase 1 and 2 that aren't at 100%, I guess, have those all stalled, or are some of them just in process?
They're just done. Well, I say 100% because we've done what we can do under, what the kickoff instructions were. So for example, if you go to Phase 1, more legislative development approval processes, well, we've carved out about as much as much QJ review as we can and made it legislative. Most everything coming in now, with the exception of PDPs, the step 2 of that plan development process, you haven't seen many special use permits in a while. But PDPs, that's about the last thing we do still that's quasi judicial, and that's not a bad thing. But other than that, boy, between conditional zoning and a lot of plan developments and things like that, we're rocking and rolling on a lot of legislative processes that give you and the citizens of the community far more control over the projects.
I have a question, BJ. The National Register survey, I call it that was done for Trinity AME Zion Church, was that paid for by the town?
Oh, no, you're referring to another
National
thing, which
Historic
is
is a different thing.
Yeah, that's the URC grant, the Underrepresented Communities Grant. That was paid for by a grant, $75,000 grant that the town, Rachel Mann applied for and got that grant. So those 3 properties, the work by the consultants to take those 3 properties, including Trinity AME, and submit them to the National Park Service to become landmarks designated structures is done. And then the second part of that grant is to survey additional properties for recognition. So yeah, separate pot of money, separate project.
And that grant is still in place. I asked that specific question in Durham, so that grant still exists despite the fact.
It was, there was a little shaky period at a point during the early part of our president's administration, but that's been.
It is still in place. I did ask that question.
I'd like to take every opportunity I can just to clarify. You have the National Register Historic District, which has a very large boundary and includes a lot of the area on the other side of the highway of Southern Pines. Then you have the local historic district. Now that National Register Historic District is recognition of a historic district. Regulation, actual by staff, is only the 10-block local historic district that is adopted under zoning, and that's just that downtown area. They're both called historic districts, so it can get very confusing very quickly. And then the third thing is the underrepresented communities grant, which is for 3 properties in West Southern Pines. So those 3 things can get they can seem to overlap at times, yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? And I was looking for this. The National Historic District comprises over 495 structures, parcels, and 320 acres of land. What is, not for right now, please, don't spin out of control. We have about a 10 block in our local historic district. And there is significant overlap, as you showed me on the map, in terms of shared property and shared resources. Do we dig that deep in the weeds to find out what our own little historic district in downtown specifically? And then we know what West Southern Pines has because of this URC that was just granted us. And the reason why I ask is again, I've got these 2 vignettes that I can't wait to talk to you about next 2 weeks from now, that really I worry about infringing upon those, like our historic district and things like that, specifically our downtown area. Do we have any type of analysis, or is there a place you could send me? I looked all over our web, but I'm like a Gen Z guy, so Gen X, whatever.
Yes.
Not like this Pepsi generation.
Yes, we have the documentation that was put together when the local historic district was originally adopted. Much of it is summarized and well summarized and reflected in the historic district guidelines book. It talks about what was extracted out as the special character of the district.
Perfect.
What is some of the history. So that document alone is a great primer on just our 10-block local historic district, because it's the guidelines, but the first half of the document is also kind of context.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can get you a copy of that. That's easy. Hey, we'll do it. We'll have it in the morning. That's a couple clicks of the mouse. We got that one.
Question regarding Phase 2 implementation projects. Number 2, Goal 7, encourage more workforce housing, policy 7.5, and you've got a 100% graph there. In your mind, is workforce housing synonymous with missing middle?
No.
Okay,
Say,
can you give me your definition and both definitions and how they differ?
Workforce housing is going to be housing that comes in at a price point appropriate for your workforce. And that varies jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And so you would have to look at that differently. You would have to allocate different resources towards working on that.
Is that based on the mean salary of all the workforce for?
Yeah, that would be a policy decision of what you want to designate as the median income and therefore the affordability price point for your workforce. That would be a policy choice. There's certainly HUD standards that you could start with, but in terms of addressing that in a comprehensive plan and addressing it as a policy matter, that could be a choice you would come in at.
Do you have a recommendation in that regard as far as the amount?
I do not right now. No, I wouldn't be prepared to come up with that.
You would suggest using the HUD guidelines as a starting point anyway?
No, I don't know if I would characterize me as what I said as suggesting that would say that would be an alternative, would be to start with that as a guideline to then deviate from that from a policy choice. What's going to be workforce housing? Now, to your point, maybe it's a mistake to put down 100% complete for encourage more workforce housing. The 2 initiatives that ultimately came out of that effort, you'll remember there was a full court press of options.
Right.
There were many, many options in there. Ultimately, the options that were selected as the most feasible and were the options to look at what wound up being minor 2 and minor 3. So facilitating more administrative approval of a smaller dwelling unit, i.e. townhomes, that likely the market would sell for at a price point lower than a $750,000 detached single-family residential home, because the price points for many townhome projects were coming in at, $280 to $340, that type of thing.
But now we're looking at, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, now we're looking at a $400,000 price point on most townhouses. Is that correct?
I haven't looked at townhome pricing recently, no.
Keep us on the agenda item for this evening. We've jumped back to some of our other phases, which if they need to be reviewed, we can. But I think right now, Director Grieve is asking for a vote of approval for these next 7 implementation projects. Do you all have other questions on those 7?
Appropriate, Madam Mayor, for us to raise concerns as to the fact that that's presented to the public now as 100% dealt with. And there's been a lot of talk about,
There was a vote and you voted against it.
right, there was a
So,
vote that there was
I'm not sure.
there was really no time, in fact, for the newest member of the council, had 3 hours to pursue.
So
That
I guess,
That's okay.
no, I know, I
understand.
think you're asking a valid question. When that would come up is at our work session when we have roundtable. He joined the council, and I understand it came to him at the first meeting. We don't stop our work just because council changes. This is something that staff has been working on for years. It's something that our residents expressed in the 2040 comp plan, which I'm sure Bob, wanting to represent the same people who voted on these as priorities, would probably say if they said that's what was a priority, that's what he's going to see as a priority. If he doesn't, you or him or anyone else can bring it up at a work session. But right now, we're talking about phase 3. If every time something comes up, you're going to rehash every vote that's ever happened, these meetings are going to be really long. So I'm just going to ask you to stay on topic. And if you have something about phase 3, we can talk about it now. And if not, we'll bring it up in a work session. Or you can meet with staff outside of regular meetings. I mean, that's a realistic time.
So you don't want the policy to be addressed during meetings, is that correct?
If you heard me say that, then you're not listening. You would like to put words in my mouth, you've done it before, and I don't appreciate it. Please do not do that again. I would like us to discuss what's on the agenda. The attorney side of you should see that our agenda is what sets our meeting for tonight, and that's what we have to stay on for this evening. Do you have a question on implementation phase 3?
Not at the moment, I was,
Fabulous. Anybody else have a question? I see the smirk. You love getting me worked up. You love seeing me frustrated, and that's fine. If you get joy out of this, I'm happy to continue staying on council for as long as we work together, and I will get frustrated, and you can continue this line of questioning and accusations. I don't enjoy it. If you do, that's great. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to show up. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to keep working. This is my job, and I'm going to do it. If you're going to make it uncomfortable, I'm just going to do it and be uncomfortable. Do you have anything to say? Okay. From now on, I would like for us to stick to our agenda, and when you don't, I'm going to do the same thing, and it doesn't mean I don't want things talked about at public meetings. It means that we have an agenda, and we have other meetings that you know. You've been on the council for 4 years. You know when to bring things up.
I appreciate our mayor's respect of time. And so with that said, if there aren't any other comments from my fellow council people, then I vote to approve the comprehensive plan, phase 3 implementation projects.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We're on to our first legislative hearing. We have Character District Amendment to Zoning Map and UDO. This has been continued. It says November 6, 2026, but it has been continued long before that. My understanding is that SB 382, as Bob referenced, is actually being held up by the Speaker of the House.
I think that was supposed to have been November 6, 2025 meeting. Is that what it was supposed to be? Because it says 2026.
Well, I think it's just the most recent.
Oh, the continuance is since the November 25.
Right.
But
It
it
just-
it
it
actually
says
started
2026.
back in 20,
Started back in 2024.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
It has been a long time.
Okay.
But if you want to reach out to the Speaker of the House and ask him to get it out of committee, that would be where they can vote on it.
Mayor, as a point of, I believe you're referring to what's being held up right now is Senate Bill 587.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You're right. It's 587, the one that would fix 382.
587 is the front runner
Thank you so much. 582. 587. See, it's a good reason.
But your point still is the same. It's in the same place.
It is, but if we call the Speaker of House and ask for the correct one, I think we'll have better luck. That's your job. All right, thank you. Hey, Mr. Broadwell, how are you?
Good evening, everyone. James Broadwell from the Planning Department, and yes, I have 2 text amendments to talk to you all about tonight with staff recommendations that, as we've mentioned, have been on hold since December of &24. And that is the Character District Design Guidelines for Commercial Development and the Landscaping and Tree Protection Amendments. And before we get into it, I just want to give a very, very brief recap of how we got here, just to jog everyone's memory. As you all recall, just following the comp plan as part of Phase 1, the Character District Design Guidelines and tree protection were both major priorities. There was a ton of public engagement, focus groups, staff time, consultant time, the work went into this. And they were nearly ready for adoption in that December. And that same month, Senate Bill 382 happened, which had one very specific component right there in orange that related to these text amendments in that under the section that says local governments cannot downzone, it expanded that definition of downzoning to include nonconformities. Nonconformities being a nonconforming structure, site element, site improvement, which obviously did not jive very well with these text amendments. So for that reason, the council opted to continue them for periods of 90, 60 days to see what, if anything, had changed in legislature. And here we are 14 months later, and nothing has changed. So for that reason, staff, we all looked at this, reevaluated over the past month. We got the tree protection focus group back together. We talked with our land use law consultant, MAC, planning board. We have recommendations for both of those for you all tonight. The first one I'll mention, I'll get into is character districts. If I get my computer to work right. Which aim to change, there's just some page snapshots from it up here on the board. The standards for new commercial development for the West Southern Pines district, character district in the comp plan, and downtown, which had a lot of very specific details that make things more restrictive, which obviously does not conform to Senate Bill 382. So this one's pretty straightforward. Now, staff recommending to deny this particular text amendment. But with that said, doesn't mean it's not still on the shelf. Should things change in the future, we can still bring it back, start it back in a new process, and given how much time has been lost since we last actually talked about this, that might be for the best anyway.
So if we bring it back, do we have to go through the notice requirements again?
We would, yes.
Okay. All right, well, I appreciate us trying to get through this, that we spent the last year and a half at least trying. But I hope that it does get revisited.
All the bones are still sound in there. If we restart it and give it a fresh look, fresh education, and renotice it, it could still work should things change.
It's just like the housing, really good work that the staff has done, and it's a shame that it's being held up by other politicians. It's just what happens. Do you all have other questions?
Is anyone aware, and that would be Planning Department or perhaps Mr. Parsons, Ms. Roth, is anyone aware of any body, any town or any municipality that has made a cohesive, has had a cohesive approach to asking the legislature to reconsider?
There were local bills. There was at least one. that
Yeah,
did
there's
get
local
approved.
bills, and the League of Municipalities has pretty regularly been lobbying on this issue, and we all received an update just a couple weeks ago that it's tied up with the Speaker of the House and the fight between the House and the Senate. But there have been individual municipalities
Right, that's what I wondered.
located around the state that may have got themselves individual exemptions based upon very unique circumstances and having a legislator interested in those circumstances. But if I'm understanding your question correctly, really the concerted effort has been through the lobbying organizations and the larger like League of Municipalities that represent the interest of all of the local communities.
Can you cite exceptions that have been considered Do you know the answer to that, or is that something I should ask in Durham when I'm with the entire group that I meet with there?
Know that, I think the little community of Mill River might have been one of them that got a specific exemption. That's the only one I think that has ultimately worked. And I don't know the specific details about what made that one attractive enough to come through. Other
It
than
was the same language. It was the exact same
clearly
language
had
that
the
we.
right legislator
for.
behind it, and others weren't concerned with Mill River, apparently. So
Okay, so the cohesiveness came from the fact that a legislator was backing the.
Make it happen,
The battle
yeah.
of the local municipality.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the fact that the legislator sort of dictates that we sit on our hands while, and
Frustrating.
wait for them to decide whether or not municipalities have control over municipal decisions, which is interesting.
James, Mr. Broadwell, sorry. I just had one quick question, and it might go to other folks. Just doing a little bit of thought here. With our limit, 382 limits our ability to do certain things, right? It takes control out of our hands, out of your hands, right? To craft the town the way that the community's asked us to craft. And so it's kind of scary. My question would be, so for me, when I look at our different character districts based on our 2040 comp plan, two come to mind that I think are really in a very bad position. That's the downtown adjacent neighborhood and parts of West Southern Pines. The others obviously are safeguarded, whether they're preservation or conservation pieces.
Yeah, those are the two we're working on.
That was my question,
Yeah.
and I will now go ahead and shush.
Sorry, I think we're all like,
No, there's a reason those two were the first two that staff began work on, and unfortunately, before we could get
See, we're all on the
anything
same page.
adopted,
yeah.
the legislature changed the rules on us.
Yeah, no. Man, that is awesome, and I sorry to waste the last 90 seconds of your life. You can't get them back.
If I may, it's a great question, and we were pleasantly surprised by how it really had support on both sides of what may classically fall as growth-related issues. The issue of identifying that which makes a certain character of your jurisdiction unique, extracting out the design elements that contribute to that unique character, and then putting those design elements into regulations for future growth. And we had people from the county calling us, asking about our character district standards. We had people from other jurisdictions calling, wanting to see what character districts. I'm having lunch tomorrow with the people from Davidson who are interested in our character districts and the work on it. And it's a real shame that it ran into this because it was well supported by, and so, but it's still there. It's on the shelf, and if any progress is made, we can get going again.
Unless there are any other questions, there's a draft motion there for you all. Coming for denial from staff, but
Hate making this motion to just kill and deny all your hard work, but since you've asked us to. And it looks like there's two sets of motions, because there's the zoning map and the UDO.
yes, that was actually,
okay.
Councilman Kern, to your question too, that the boundary for the downtown overlay actually expanded very widely for that as well. From
Yeah.
US 1 to Midland, so it would wrap all that area into those standards.
So I'll make the first motion that after considering the criteria for map amendment found in UDO 2.17.9, the first of which is consistency with the comprehensive plan, Town Council finds that the proposed map amendment Z04-24 is consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan, but is inconsistent with North Carolina Session Law 24-57 or Senate Bill 382, given the nonconformities it would create in the Southern Pines jurisdiction.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. And
Any opposed?
therefore, I move to deny Z-04-24 in order to prevent inconsistencies between the Southern Pines UDO and North Carolina General Statute.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, I don't think anything has been quite so hard to deny. But really appreciate the work you guys have done on this.
And to the UDO motion,
Yep.
I'll move that after considering the criteria for text amendments found in UDO 2.17.10, the first of which is consistency with the comprehensive plan, the Town Council find that the proposed text amendments OA-04-24 are consistent with the comprehensive plan, but are inconsistent with North Carolina Session Law 24-57, Senate Bill 382, given the nonconformities they would create in our jurisdiction.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Go ahead.
And therefore, I move to deny OA-4-24 in order to prevent inconsistencies between the Southern Pines UDO and North Carolina General Statute.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All motions carry. Thank you.
All right, now, the second one, a little bit different. So on the nonconformities issue, the landscaping and tree protection amendment was a sort of concerted, comprehensive effort of landscaping, open space, and a tree protection plan all together in a very holistic reform across the UDO. In talking with Mac and talking with David Owens, our land use law consultant, the tree protection component probably does not create a nonconformity, which is good news. But because it is so intertwined with the open space and with the landscaping portions, which do have nonconformities, it needs to be unglued, reformulated with the good bones that it has, and can likely go through just fine in a slightly different way. So with that in mind, in that context, our recommendation tonight for this is actually to adopt a small portion of what's in here. It's the recommended species list, which the tree protection focus group worked really hard putting together. It's the, right here on the screen, small trees, large trees, shrubs, and large shrubs, and then axing what is currently on that list, which is why that motion is kind of strange. And then beyond that, ending the rest of the file, and then starting a brand new file, bringing it through planning board, bringing it back to you all that has those good bones. And there's actually an opportunity to simplify it a little bit here as well by just merging the open space and tree protection, and hopefully have that to you all by early summer. I can go as in-depth as you all want as far as the why that is and go through some examples. Just let me know how in-depth you all want to go from here.
I have one very specific question. In regard to harmful plants, and those are going to be potentially harmful substances in high enough concentration to cause illness or irritation or touch the swallowed, I wanted to make sure that cherry laurels were included on the harmful plants list, which I did talk a long time ago to Elena about. Cherry laurels have been, they are a native plant. They've also been known to kill both horses and dogs. And I had asked that they be taken off the list and would like to make sure that they are. Thank you.
I think I see it pop up
Elaine and
right
I-
there. There it is,
Yeah.
axed.
Okay, great. I just wanted to verify that was actually done. I have known of horses and dogs, both that have,
And actually, too, when the focus group came back together about mid last month, they looked at the list again and they actually went down and found 2 more. They were like, no, we need to get rid of those. And
Okay.
Town arborist confirmed that, so that's why there's 2 more from the recommended list also getting taken out.
yeah, cherry laurels have been a favorite with landscaping because they do grow quickly, but they're also incredibly poisonous. And I think that both horses and dogs are pretty important to this county. So, thanks.
I would just like to add in regards to the motion. This motion is crafted with, James and I stress tested it many times to make sure that what you're doing by reading it as is that it extracts only that portion which we can still salvage from the landscaping code.
Right.
And basically lets everything else pass, go away, and then, because it's not adopted, and then, like James said, we'll bring the tree protection back in a different format, extract it out in a different way, but we can keep the bones of it, as he said, and it'll come back to you at the beginning of the summer. So it's a weird motion.
But you feel like you feel comfortable with it as is?
If there's anything in this packet, we've stress tested the heck out of, it's that motion right there,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Council, do you have other questions before we go on to the motion?
No, I appreciate y'all's kind of picking what you could out of it, so thank you. I'll make a motion that after considering criteria for text amendment found in UDO 2.17.10, the first of which is consistency with the comprehensive plan, we, the town council, find that the proposed text amendments are consistent with the comprehensive plan and are a reasonable way to implement the comprehensive plan for the reasons set forth in the planning board's resolution that is included as an attachment to the staff report for OA-03-24, but only with certain changes to ensure consistency with North Carolina Session Law 24-57.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Go ahead.
And therefore, I move to approve only the amendments within OA-03-24 as follows. Number one, strike UDO Appendix F, Section F-10, subsections A through F, as well as sections F-11 through F-16 as shown. And number two, add the chart listing recommended small trees, large trees, small shrubs, and large shrubs under UDO Appendix F, Section F-10 as shown, except for the proposed small tree number 23 and the proposed large tree number 20. And number three, strike the sentence. Sections F-11 through F-16 contain descriptions of the trees and shrubs listed here from Appendix F, Section F-10.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, this is updating the UDO through all three phases and every step along the way of things that are community priorities and council priorities. Town staff, you guys have above and beyond worked on these, and it's very clear that we have experts in the field and that we can rely on you to implement the things that are important to our community. So thank you so much for all of your hard work.
Thank you for that, and I will say, it's planning, it's all the team, surrounded by amazing people, plus all the other teams in our building and the organization, because we lean on everybody for help, truly, from management to, it's a great team, and we lean into each other for teamwork on a regular basis, so that truly goes to everybody in the organization.
Well, thank you, guys. Sorry that the whole group is not here, but you can pass it along to them tomorrow at work. All right.
So did we have a second on that? Did we record a second on that last motion that we all voted on?
Yeah, I did second.
Second it?
And
Okay,
yes,
I
ma'am.
missed, yeah, I
That's
missed
all right.
that.
She is.
She's drawing that second fifth.
I tried to wait, give everybody a chance, but I mean, we're not gonna sit here.
If you're fast, girl.
All right, our last public hearing, pretty sure, yep, is our waiting period sign and Appendix B amendments to the UDO. This one's near and dear to everyone's heart this time of year, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, right. A lot of opportunities to take pictures and gain visual aids right now for this text amendment. Good evening, members of council. My name is BJ Grieve, Town of Southern Pines Planning Department. I have before you this evening a text amendment that accomplishes three things, the third of which my esteemed colleague James Mickle, our town engineer, will speak to. I will speak to the first two. The first of which I will just speak to very quickly and dispatch with in short order. In the 2025 legislative session, Session Law 2025-94 specifically prohibited waiting periods for refiling applications. And we do have in our UDO 3 of those in the sections that were in the packet. Those sections relate to, if you'll bear with me, those sections relate to, I had my notes right here. Here they are, here we go. We had a waiting period general waiting period for categories of development approval. We had one for the refiling of special use permits, and we had one for the refiling of architectural compliance permits. So those have been stricken. However, we do have two things in the UDO that are requirements that the same application cannot be resubmitted, but there is no waiting period. Therefore, it doesn't trigger what was specifically prohibited, so those are remaining. They were in the packet, called out merely to identify it and say, this is not a waiting period. This is merely a prohibition on refiling the same application, so we're keeping it. And there's two examples of that. That's the entirety of number one. It's just consistency with session law. When those laws are passed, we try to stay on top of things and get them modified in the UDO very quickly. Now on to number 2 of 3. Number 2 of 3, you will recall that we revised our sign code last year, and in doing so, we brought it into consistency with constitutional law for the United States of America, and thereby regulating only the time, manner, and place of signage, not the content. We had a number of provisions in our UDO that were specific to types of content. When we made those revisions, I stood before you and I said that the section on temporary signs, sometimes referred to as political signs, was fine, left as is. The requirement at that time was that political signs, as they were referred to at that time, had to be on private property. But if your private property came right up to the edge of the road, those signs had to be at least 10 feet away from the edge of the road. Can you hit the button once? That is a sign that is 10 feet back from the edge of the asphalt. And come to find out, when the municipal election occurred, not only does nobody follow it, but I challenge anyone to identify exactly where the property line is and where the right-of-way line is in that picture. And that was exactly the problem that code compliance ran into, was that the enforcement and the phone calls we received, first of all, 10 feet is generally too far back. I mean, it's a long ways back from the edge of the road. And then even if that was, let's say that was private property there or right-of-way, you have to make a distinction. So we recognized it didn't work. And I do want to call out that Councilman Goodman, at the time that came out, did specifically say, wait, this isn't going to work. And he said, A, B, C, and X, Y, and Z, and he was exactly right. It didn't work, and so, but we kept it the same. Now, moving forward, it was determined we have this challenge, which is it's a value challenge. Southern Pines has a value of aesthetics and making sure that signage and temporary signage doesn't obscure the beautiful views of our motorways. On the other hand, we have a value of free speech, political speech, elected officials being able to put up signs, and those two values occasionally do have tension between them. So where that left us was looking at, okay, how do we fix this? What is the problem? You can see the problem. So how do we fix this? Well, we decided to look no further than the North Carolina General Statute about how signs are regulated for the state. And the way the signs are regulated by the state states that no sign shall be close, this is from Chapter 136, Section 32, Regulation of Signs, for state rights-of-way, and there are many in our jurisdiction. No sign shall be closer than 3 feet from the edge of the pavement of the road, and no sign shall be higher than 42 inches above the edge of the pavement of the road. So we went out and did some experiments with different signs we had laying around from commercial sign removal, and we found that 3 feet overall looked pretty good. So we crafted the regulations to have, now I will say that the person on the left side, this is an AI-generated image, the person on the left side walking a dog does not have a bun because we're trying to, but that's just how AI came out. We all said, man, that.
I think we did.
Yeah.
I think the bun looks good.
Yeah. So, all right. So what this diagram shows is that the way this would work, the way that the proposed text would work that is in the packet for the meeting this evening, is that on the right side of the road, you'll notice pavement without a curb. In that case, it is 3 feet back, same as state statute. In order to be clear, so people wondered about, what about a curb, et cetera. On the left side, you'll see a version with a curb. It is 3 feet, it is specific that it is 3 feet back from the back of curb. Most signs are about 2 feet or 3 feet in width, somewhere in there. There's also a median shown because the subject of a median, as drafted, the distance of 3 feet from the back of curb would take care of, you really wouldn't be able to have a sign unless you had a 2-foot sign in an 8-foot median. And so other than that, small medians, signs would not be able to go in there because they couldn't be 3 feet back. That's how it's drafted right now. So if you go ahead, these, for example, would not be allowed. Putting signs right up against the edge of the asphalt, putting signs in a skinny median, putting signs in the area between the sidewalk and the back of curb if it's only 2 or 3 feet. And I did go out and take quite a few pictures and come up with some examples merely to illustrate what this looks like in practice, really to help inform the policy decision this evening of whether or not 3 feet back is appropriate. So if we want to move on to the next sign, the next slide was showing, to illustrate the point of where these are allowed versus where town is regulating versus where the state is regulating. Everything in green is a state roadway. Everything in purple is a town roadway. So we have certain sections of Connecticut, certain sections of Pennsylvania. We have certain sections of Young's Road. We have certain sections of Morganton. We have May Street. And so you can see that the issue of what's a state road versus a town road is also an issue, and so therefore it's better just to mimic what the state requires so that it's kind of the same all the way around. Now, move on to the next slide, please. So I put those little green check marks just to stay consistent with our AI-generated image. These are out at Knoll Road right now. These were just randomly selected. They have nothing to do with the candidate. You'll see it's a selection of all different kinds. These 3 signs are 3 feet back from the back of the pavement. So this would be, if enforced as written, this is the way political signage would look. 3 feet back, that's the right height, that's the right size, et cetera, et cetera. So let's look at some other examples. Next slide, please. So here are examples, and I thought this was interesting because the same 2 candidates, but they're just swapped. And on one hand, on the left image, Peterson is good, Norris is not. On the right image, Peterson is not good, Norris is good. And so that's just an illustration of how what it looks like when you plug them in like that. So we would come general election, I want to give everybody a heads up. In order to do enforcement here, what we would do is we'd walk up to, on the left image, we would pick the Norris sign out of the ground, we would move it a few feet down the road or a few feet up the road and put it 3 feet back. We would not pull them, and bring them back to the office and make them pick them up, but we would just move them because we would be able to have a tape measure and we'd be able to know they're 3 feet back from the edge of the road.
I worry about that for you guys. I mean, that's going to be a heavy lift. I mean, you're going to constantly be doing that.
I agree. We would need to do it. I think what we find with signage is that most people will violate until they find out that we do move them, and then someone will say, well, in the town, they have to be 3 feet back. We find that with temporary signage, the more we stay on top of it, the less we have to do enforcement, because typically people just say, yeah, it's not worth it, don't put them up in Southern Pines. And so that's what we would do, and we would be comfortable with that.
Not work just as well to just remove those signs and make people, they need a dog in the fight if they're not following the rules.
It would be an option, it would be an option according to our sign code to pull them,
Remove.
bring them back to the office like we do with temporary commercial signage, and then require them to come pick them up. That could be an enforcement policy decision made at that time.
Okay.
But probably, we think an easier way to do it might just be at that time to move them rather than pull them. Pulling them gives people driving by the impression that we are pulling them, and that's illegal. That's illegal for political signs and state rights of way. Wouldn't be illegal for a political sign in our right of way because of the way the code is written, but it would get very confusing very fast. And if people see us just pulling it out and doing this, it's okay for us.
You'd be in the pilot.
Go ahead, sorry.
They'd have a picture of you in the pilot pulling the sign.
Yeah, don't mind. Town planner.
The pilot planting the sign, which I think is a bigger concern.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that's a bigger concern. I think you should pull them, and people should have to take responsibility for it. And having dealt with this issue personally, as we all have, a lot of times people with great intentions put your signs out for you. And then you get a call, you have 6 signs at our office, come get them. And I think there's some value to the candidate having to be responsible for putting them back out.
I don't disagree with anything you said. We could have that discussion at a work session prior to
Okay.
early voting before the signs go out, because we have some flexibility in that enforcement, correct, Mac? Yeah, so.
From an administrative standpoint, it's more work for you guys to pull them and bring them back, right?
I don't know.
That's a great question. I think my gut tells me, based on having a lot of experience with both of it, probably a bit of a toss-up.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's about 6 of one, half dozen of the other, overall, net, yeah.
So when you pull it and put it back in the ground and the bottom connector on the sign bracket breaks, you have a whole new issue.
That's actually why I say it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Exactly.
Pulling them, I usually just hop out of the truck, I yank it, throw it in the back of the
Right.
truck, and I'm out.
Right.
On the other hand, and I do it all the time. It's funny actually how often I do it. And the rest of the team does as well. James comes into work some mornings, 5 minutes late, and he's got, armloads of signs. It's great. I love our team.
That's actually James being early then, just point of information.
Yeah. It's true, yeah, good point, yeah. I said 5 minutes late, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, thank you for grabbing the signs on the way.
Don't pick on James.
Yeah. Here's another sign. Here's another example of signs when they are right at the edge of the back of curb and the effect that can have in terms of how it looks from, and then you have the one in front is 3 feet back. I think I have one more. Yeah, and here's another, going back to that same intersection. You have a handful that are too close. You have one, the Davis one is the proper way back, the proper setback, 3 feet back. So these are really just meant to illustrate for the town to make an informed decision. Do you like the 3 feet? The 3 feet's consistent with state statute. We can go with 3 feet. Or if for some reason you look at this, you go, the ones right at the back of curb just don't bother me that much. That's okay too. We can take a closer look at that and actually not require any setback at all. That's our prerogative. But we think the best policy is probably just to be consistent with state, simply because there are so many different rights of way and nobody knows the distinction if there are different rules and regulations. That's everything I have about signs. Do you have any questions about that issue?
Can I ask one question? Where is the reservoir of knowledge that a candidate would go to get whatever decisions we are made by the staff? Having just gone through this, I know that, you don't need to write this down, Ms. Anna, but I know that some of my signs may have been put in the wrong place. And I got some phone calls, and I moved them, ma'am. I did move them, but,
Oh,
what's that?
I didn't call you.
No, you did not.
Okay, I was like, I don't know why you're saying, looking at me,
gracious.
because I didn't tell anybody to move any signs.
No, you were very gracious, and I appreciate that. But I think whatever decision that you guys are presenting and bringing forward is a great one, I really do. How do we get that information that's the next step in my mind. How do we get it to the candidates? When it's a Southern Pines specific, easy. Like if you would have called me, I'd have been like, oh, sugar honey iced tea. The mayor just called me and slapped my wrist. I got to fix myself. But when it's somebody that's not in, our town and whatnot, and they're just coming here putting state signs like,
Well, it's like especially in general elections, we'll have.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I was just
And I
curious.
think-
There's no answer right now. I get it.
Oh, that's a great question. I do have an answer.
Oh,
Prior to
please.
the elections, Moore County Board of Elections does reach out to the local jurisdictions and ask for copies of their signs and does provide those to candidates, so they are informed about the signs. That is my understanding. They do reach out to us prior to most elections. They say, and they ask for a copy of our regulations. Our code and compliance officer, Lisa Webb, does provide those. For smaller elections, we do email the candidates directly. For larger, we rely on the Board of Elections for that.
Thanks.
So then, of course, becomes that whomever is working on behalf of a candidate with the Board of Elections, again, locally, not a big deal, but you get into particularly presidential elections and things, you can have multiple groups out volunteering to put stuff up, and
Yes, sir.
some ask and some don't, so.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions about signage? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to James to speak briefly to the changes to the appendices.
The only thing you're going to do in the ordinance is just have it be the 3 feet from the pavement, and you're not going to stipulate in the ordinance that you will replace signs in the correct position or that you will pick them up and carry them back. That's going to be a policy decision that is made after the fact, and you're not going to be committed to the written word that says, this is what the planning department's doing. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Cool. Love it.
There is no change to the enforcement provision. That's a policy choice at that time. The amendments in the UDO at present simply deal with the placement, 3 feet back from the pavement, and if there's a curb, 3 feet back from the back of
From
the
the
curb, and the not exceeding 42 inches in height.
Okay.
And further for your compliance deference, I guess, is it both a complaint-driven and you or Lisa or whomever drives around and sees it?
James. It's
Yes,
James working
James.
early.
So, because, there's no way you're going to see every area of town. And so I could foresee somebody's like, wait a minute, they took my sign up there, but I'm seeing my opponents over here, all illegal. Would they have an ability to report it to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully, none of this happens, but.
Yeah,
we'll
you'd be
see.
surprised. It tends to be a busy season in terms of once the code compliance officer gets weaponized, against different parties, if they start that tit for tat about signage, we can get called in. But for the most part, you'd be surprised. It's a big jurisdiction, but it's not that big a jurisdiction in terms of where the hot spots are for signs, and you can usually keep on top of most of them. The one-off ones are the ones out on Indiana somewhere that are down in the ditch, and they usually wind up still being there 3 months after the election somehow because they get covered in dust or something, and we all see them laying out there. But for the most part, the main areas, we stay on top of it. I'll put in a plug for our team. On this issue, we take great pride in what the work we do for Southern Pines in terms of temporary signage, because temporary signs, as soon as one goes up, and we've received this feedback, I just want to put this plug in real quick, if you'll humor me. We get this feedback where, somebody walks in, they say, they'll pick up 5 signs, and they'll say, I told my boss we shouldn't put them up Southern Pines. This is a clean town, and I knew they were going to take them down. And that's literally what they say. And so when you stay on top of signs and you keep them tidied up, it just gives the impression, people look around and they go, yeah, there aren't any other signs here like you normally see at intersections. So it kind of prevents people from putting them up. That's why we take a lot of pride in that and stay on top of that proactively. Otherwise, they proliferate.
I do have a question, and I hesitate to ask, because I think that at the state level with Board of Elections, it is content related. They actually specify election signs. But when it comes to town, we are not content at all. So is there anything keeping someone from putting a election-sized sign out before the election that advertises roofing or paving or, just a general commercial
As
sign?
politely as I can, the state statute is out of date and is
Yeah.
not constitutional.
And I understand that. I guess, so whether it's, so I guess it's, regardless of the state statute, there is nothing in our power during election season to stop someone from putting a gun show sign out that looks like an election show or election size sign in an election appropriate spot.
Correct.
I'm going to ask,
Great question.
Short of outlawing signage in the right-of-way.
Okay,
Chosen not to do.
yep, okay.
correct.
That's a great question. And I'm glad the way it's written right now, to be completely content neutral, what this provision is saying is during the period beginning on the 30th day before the beginning date of early voting for a primary, general, or special election, an unlimited number of temporary signs may be placed on private property and on adjoining town right-of-way, provided the temporary sign is placed with the adjoining private property owner's permission. And that's the same as the state. So if someone puts it in the right-of-way in front of my home, whether it's whether the content is political, whether the content is about roofing, I can pull it if they don't have if they didn't get my permission, which is why you see so many of them show up in rights-of-way in front of properties that likely are not to object, or absentee landowners, things like that. That's also part of what actually winds up controlling the number of places where these show up, because otherwise, if they don't have your permission, it's a right-of-way in front of your property, you can go pull it.
Yep.
So.
I think that the work you've done to make sure that we match the state road laws makes a lot of sense.
Mac did a tremendous amount of work helping me, and so did David Owens. We've
Yeah.
enjoyed working on that.
Thank you. Before we vote, we had additional information from Mr. Broadwell, is that right? Was there something else that you said he was going to?
Mr. Broadwell, the other James.
Oh, the other James. Oh. Thank you. I mean, this is still the same staff. You're providing more information on the same item, right?
Same item, just a subsection of the larger item.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So, good evening, James Mickle, Town Engineer. The other subsection of this deals directly with engineering standards, not unlike the conversation y'all had with the other James earlier. This comes and started really from state law being passed that is preempting our ability to regulate certain things. Specifically in this case, it is the asphalt design related to parking areas and private roads. We essentially no longer have the ability to require something that exceeds the DOT minimum standards. Put that in context for you, what that means under the town's old rules, the minimum asphalt structure in a parking lot would have been 2 inches of asphalt with 6 inches of stone under it. Now, the minimum standard under DOT would put that to 1.5 inches of asphalt and 6 inches of stone. Not a huge difference, but there is a slight reduction in the minimum thickness of asphalt. I will say most of the time, people are still going to do the 2 inches. So it's not, I don't want to say it's a terribly unimpactful, but it doesn't make a huge difference. What is a bigger difference is the regulation related to private roads, where the town standard for a local road, like you would see in a subdivision, would be 3 inches of asphalt on 8 inches of stone, whereas now that 1.5 inches of asphalt on 6 inches of stone would be acceptable in accordance with state law. So the changes in our engineering standards that you're looking at tonight basically are removing our standards and making direct references to the DOT standards to simplify it, just so we don't have to keep up with the DOT standards and then have to make changes every time they make a change. And that is really the meat of it.
Right, so we have a theme going here, mimicking the state rules, right? Good.
One quick question. What analysis has DOT brought to the table that would warrant a pretty significant reduction in the asphalt? And where I'm getting with this, so is clearly the wear and tear, not that I profess to be a construction guy, but the wear and tear not only on our vehicles in and around town, but also the need or the requirement to re-asphalt at a much quicker pace when, the rubber on the roads met a lot more. Do they have analysis done?
Yeah, so, well, I want to be clear, DOT didn't ask for this. This is absolutely a developer-driven bill.
Okay.
So, but yes, when DOT determines their standards, they do have a process, they have a design methodology. I want to say, I believe their minimum road standards come with a 20-year design life, which does still account for large trucks, trash trucks, because they are still building public roads. They are building roads that are expected to see the same traffic that any other road would.
Yeah, I love what you're doing. I just love to see the cost-benefit analysis of, reducing our material that we're using to ferry our people all across our town. And is there a significant impact on it? I believe there is, but I don't have any empirical data. But, so I'm going to go with whatever the staff recommends, but I think that's something that we definitely need to look into. And obviously you have, so, but I'm just curious.
We really have not done a cost benefit on this because, again, the changes are related to state statute. We don't have a choice.
We don't have a choice to change our standards at,
Yeah, so the state statute is now limiting the town's ability to regulate those items.
Attorney McCarley, weigh in on this real fast.
Okay.
Just provide legal opinion.
It was a legislatively driven change, and it was requested by the home builders.
And this may
that's,
This
thank
may
you.
help, because I think I see where your question is coming from. The town has always had a slightly higher standard than DOT, and a lot of that was in recognition of the soils around here, which are better for drainage, but not necessarily good for road compaction. And part of the work that James and his crew does is we've had means by which you could maybe do a little bit different cross-section, but took geotechnical testing to state that it was still going to handle fire trucks and all of those types of things. Basically, the state has taken away our ability to ask for that higher standard, and now it's just the standard DOT across the board. DOT hasn't reduced their standard, it's just that we now have to accept that as our standard
For private
for
roads
private roads.
and private parking lots.
Yeah.
A public road that is going to be dedicated to the town and the town's going to take over, we still have the ability to regulate that. Now, we did in this document make a change that makes reference to, there's two subsets of DOT standards. There's what's called the subdivision manual. That includes the very minimum standards. Then there's the asphalt highway pavement manual, which we are referencing that for the use for public roads, which could actually result in a higher standard than what our older standards had.
And where you may see this play out somewhere in the near or far future is when you've got a subdivision in front of you, and then sometimes you'll hear us have discussion around whether the roads are going to be public or private. And in the past, we've been very open to private roads in certain scenarios where they didn't connect to other public roads or different things. But now an additional question that you're going to want to keep in mind is the intent in presenting them private, that they build it to a different standard than maybe they would have to if it were a public street. Because where that plays out then is 20 years down the road when the road begins to fail and the neighborhood says, why aren't my streets public and I'd like the town to take them? You're now dealing with a different cross-section altogether than what you would have required.
But at that point, they have to
on the
bring them
front
up to
end.
code before we would
That's
accept vacation.
Generally what we have always recommended as a staff and required, but that's ultimately up to that council at that point in time, what they're going to do with it.
Okay.
I will leave it with one last bit. There is another bill out there. It's House Bill 661. It is passed the House, but is stalled at the Senate. If it were to make the whole way through, I will likely be back in front of you again, because that bill does grab public roads and now limits our ability to regulate those also.
I mean, DOT is pretty good about putting in roads, right? Like, if anybody knows how to put a road in, wouldn't you think that they do?
Correct. They build more roads than anybody in the state of North Carolina.
Okay. Okay. All right. No, that's okay.
I don't have a question for you, James. I have a question. I'm sorry to do this, but can we go back to signs for a second?
Yeah, why don't we have James stay and we'll have questions on the
Okay, that's cool.
roads before we jump back.
I just wanted to ask a quick question about the asphalt. I guess maybe dovetailing off of what Councilman Curtin was saying. In your expert opinion, James, do you think that's going to be a problem, since we're talking about like a whole inch less of asphalt?
I do believe in the long run, you will see problems. A lot of times, the failure of a road isn't so much a structural loading issue. It is a wear and tear from environmental degradation. And a thinner asphalt is going to wear to a point faster than a road that has additional asphalt. It takes more to then rebuild it. It will cost more in the long run.
But these are also private roads, so we're not the ones rebuilding them, right?
Currently, yes.
Okay. So yeah, if a private road in a private neighborhood deteriorates, they're responsible for it.
Until House Bill 661.
No, 661 is in the public roads, so it's a completely different issue, yeah.
So now, I guess, to build on that point, one thing that is in the law states if a developer does choose to do that, there are certain limitations, and they actually have to state it on the plat. So there's at least some warning out to the public that, hey, this thing was built to a minimum standard that doesn't meet what would have otherwise been required by the municipality.
Thank you, James. Are there other questions on the road before we jump back over to signs? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, James.
Thanks, James. So in regard to the days after an election is over, currently what the amended UDO ruling would be is 10 days, they have to be removed within 10 days after the election. Is that tracking state law again? And can we perhaps think about making that 3 days after the election?
I thought we were keeping it at 2.
It's
It
10
was
right now.
2.
It's 10 right now, the way it's written. And is that to be consistent with the state?
72
The
and
state
92.
gives 30 days, and it says, any political sign remaining in the right-of-way of the state highway system more than 30 days after the end of the break period.
It's a
of traffic
state
service,
highway
this
now.
subsection shall be deemed unlawfully placed and abandoned property, and a person may remove and dispose of such political signs without penalty. We usually have no problem within about roughly a week.
I was going to say,
A handful that are left will go up.
can we make it 3 days? Is there a reason, does it create, help me think through whether or not it creates a problem if you make it that signs need to be removed within 3 days of the day of the election?
My opinion, my professional opinion based on experience, is fine as is for about a week, because depending upon, if, say, all your volunteers are employed and they need full signs on the weekend, election was on Tuesday, they need to work on it this weekend. It's usually worth giving them the rest of that week and the weekend to get their volunteers out there full signs. Boy, I don't have to tell this group, there's quite a few sometimes,
Right.
They need that help. So 3 days would put you at, Thursday, Friday, and that can really
Can we make it, does 7 work then, rather than 10?
current standard in our UDO.
It's 10 right now is what you have.
It's on that page 72 of 92 in the packet.
It seemed like you wanted to say something about this. You hit it? Okay.
Weekend point, 3 days only takes you up to.
Right, okay.
Often here,
Okay.
I'm gonna have people out this weekend to do it, that's when we see a lot of them come down.
Okay. So if the election's on Tuesday and you're doing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's 5 days. I'd like to make it faster than 10 days. And for the most part, it is. Honestly, people are pretty good about picking them up.
Can I ask why?
It's just,
A shin kicker, I was just curious.
no, it's great. And
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. but-
no, you're not rude. I think it's a great question. I think conversation is a good thing to have. I think that it just forces people to take responsibility for the fact that the signs are there. And again, we're known as a town that doesn't have a lot of signs and doesn't have a lot of,
I believe you have a sign behind Doug's Auto, by the way.
pardon me?
I think there's still a sign up behind Doug's Auto. Sorry.
I'm sorry?
You have an election sign up. It's okay. It'll get picked up eventually. There's one behind Doug's Auto. When you go out of the library, you'll see it.
I'm so sorry. What are you saying? Can you repeat what you just said?
No, that's okay. I think I said it twice. We'll move on. Does anyone else have an
The
issue
sign's
with
still up, in
10?
other words.
Great.
You have a sign up.
I'm excited, and I will go try to figure out where that is.
Is there really?
Yeah, I think it's because they cleared the.
I would like to
bushes.
reinforce that 7-day and penalize anyone that's over.
This is a long time. And I think, and so if I do have a sign and anybody wants to pull it, that's great. Pull it.
So the state, this is, I guess, where we come back into the issue of the map you pulled up that has, and that was just downtown, the difference between state and town roads. If our rules are different than what the state enforces, we're now expecting people to know which roads are which and to pick up signs quicker on town roads than they do on state, or us to enforce them in a 3-day difference of town versus state
But the
roads.
state says 30 days. You can pick them up for 30 days. So we already have a difference.
Well, at least that's a big enough difference.
That's a pretty big
This is a
difference.
policy decision. Staff's perspective is that 10 days works okay. We don't have a problem. But it is absolutely a policy decision. And if the majority of the council wishes it to be less or more, we're happy to deal with that and enforce that.
I'd like to amend it to 5 days rather than 10. And that does account for your argument about weekends.
I mean, I think,
It's not going to come, I mean, I don't think anybody wants 30 days for signs to remain. I don't think.
I don't think the candidates want their signs to be out there for 30 days. I mean, I think 7 would probably make more sense because you know it's a week after the election, but it's whatever you guys
Yeah,
want.
I mean, I do think at least, as you mentioned, through that next weekend. So if we want to make it 7 from 10, I'm okay with that. Again, that's the only area I've seen where we're differentiating from the state, but I don't want this to be 30. So yeah, I'd be okay with 7.
Good compromise. Make it 7.
Following the public hearing on this, maybe I'll tee up a motion to include that small change.
Okay, great.
All right, are there other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none. As a public hearing, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on any updates, including the waiting period, signs, and Appendix B amendments to the UDO? Okay, seeing none. Council, are you ready to make a motion, or do you want to wait for staff? Do you need some time?
Just a few minutes, please.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and take a break? Let's come back. It is, by my watch, 7:30. Let's come back at 7:40.
Oh, look at you, you AI.
Yes, let's close the public hearing before we come back. Okay, so I'll close the public hearing, and we'll take a break, come back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Is it closed?
we're going to come back to our meeting. If staff, I think, has a motion prepared, are there other, oh yeah, we've already closed the public hearing. Yeah. We can still have council discussion if there's anything else that you all would like to bring up or discuss. Hearing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that after considering the criteria for text amendments found in UDO 2.17.10, the town council, we find that the proposed text amendments, excuse me, there was 3 pieces to this, are consistent with the comprehensive plan and are a reasonable way to implement that plan for the reasons set forth in the planning board's resolution that was included as an attachment to the staff report for OA-01-26.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead.
And therefore, I move to approve the proposed amendments to the UDO as shown on the attachments to staff report OA-01-26 in the February 10th, 2026 Town Council packet with the following additional changes: to revise 4.6.16F to reduce 10 days following an election within which time signs must be removed to 7 days following an election.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you guys again for your hard work getting that together, especially with the last minute amendment. All right, with nothing left on the agenda, I am waiting for a motion to adjourn.
Mayor,
Yes.
just for the record, Officer Berry was kind enough to correct a statement I made a little earlier. I thought there was a sign that dropped the speed limit to 35 as you approached the traffic circle in the vicinity of Sandhills Community College. He tells me, since he runs radar out there regularly, that that is not the case. So just correction for the record.
Okay, so the speed limit along Airport Road from the small traffic circle to the big traffic circle is 45 the whole way?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, officer.
And I would love to have 1 moment for a compliment, but I'm not sure who I'm complimenting, and perhaps you can help me out here. During the snowstorm, somebody working the snowplow came upon Arbutus, and Arbutus is the favorite sledding hill of the children. And clearly, there was a conflict. Were we going to disappoint every child in town and plow the street? And whoever it was brilliant and ended up with a compromise, plowed half the street, left half the street for sledding, and just gets a major compromise award. Everybody was happy. So whoever it was, I don't know who you were, but you did a great thing, very community-minded, very cool. I got a call from
Yeah,
a couple people, couple parents.
I think that's one of our rock star employees, DJ, who Courtney has done some videos on, and yeah, he's very thoughtful along those
I can
lines.
get you any testimonials that you would like supporting that employee.
He actually has a coloring page of himself.
I saw the coloring pages too. What a great idea. I think maybe you were behind that. So kudos to you too. Yeah, that was great. And I had kids show me their finished products. So very cool response to the storm on many fronts, but those two I got specific calls about. So thanks to the staff. That was cool.
That's nice.
Same one that did the paint the plow?
That was Archie. That was Archie.
Okay, that was pretty cool too.
No, I think the story about DJ was after Helene. He was one of the first people that came in, right? Yeah.
That was what prompted the video.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, he reached out. We got a written email about him, and I shared it with him, which he was so proud. And he was telling me about the sledding and how we wanted to save it for everybody.
That's really nice.
Spread the word. I mean, superstar, rock star status goes to that employee. So thank you for that. And on that note, unless somebody else has a compliment, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. See you in a couple weeks.